meanwhile, the White House says top Republicans need to reissue their oversight requests once the GOP assumes its House majority tomorrow. This demand coming in a new letter sent to James Comer and Jim Jordan, the incoming chairman of the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees, sort of giving us a preview of how the White House does plan to fight back against an onslaught of Republican investigations. And there are quite a few that are planned. Joining us now to take a closer look is constitutional law attorney and legal analyst Ameer Benno. Ameer, great to have you in today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Bianca. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. So, we're not too surprised, of course, that the lawyers would say, well, you need to refile it. They're really not going to, help them investigate them. But talk to us a little bit about these investigations. I mean, there's a long list of them when it comes to the border, big tech censorship. Ameer, how do you think that the new GOP House handles that while also doing the day-to-day business of the American people? Is there a way you think they should prioritize all of these investigations?
Well, I think these investigations have to be the priority. I think that is the work of the American people. I mean, the American people want to hear about investigations into the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. They want to have an investigation into Fauci and the origins of COVID-19 and the degree to which the NIH funded gain-of-function research. They want to know about Hunter Biden. And more importantly, they want to know about Joe Biden's connection and to the extent that Joe Biden benefited from Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine and China and elsewhere. We want to know about the southern border, obviously. I think that's perhaps one of the most pressing issues, especially in light of the fact that Title 42 may go by the boards very soon. And so we want to investigate what Mayorkas knew and what he's done.
Where do they start, though? Where do they start? I mean, everything you're saying, they're extremely important, valid, but where do they start?
Well, that's ultimately going to be something that leadership's going to have to determine as to what is the most pressing priority for them. I would submit that the border is perhaps one of the most important ones, and also the extent to which the Department of Justice has been politicized under Merrick Garland, and the degree you mentioned it before that our national security and intelligence apparatus has coordinated with big tech to censor Americans' speech, whether it has to do with the vaccine or whether it has to do with elections. Those are two of the, I think, most pressing issues that need to be dealt with immediately.
Mm-hmm. And, even if they have to refile some of these investigations, it will deter them for all these issues. I want to get your reaction to the January 6th committee. They wrapped up the work there and they withdrew that subpoena of former President Trump. President Trump, responding on Truth Social, you may have seen this, that he wrote, they probably did so because they knew I did nothing wrong or they were about to lose in court. So obviously this is a win for Trump. But we also have, as you know, the DOJ appointed special counsel Jack Smith still on the job, floating out there. Do you think we'll hear anything in the first few weeks of this new year from Smith and the DOJ? As you mentioned, highly politicized, highly weaponized, the DOJ.
I can't predict in the first few weeks, but we will hear something from Smith. I mean, Smith's investigation continues. I agree with President Trump's assessment that the subpoena onto him was purely a political stunt. Should have been done at the very beginning of the investigation if they were serious about it. And ultimately, I think that the committee realized that they don't want to draw a very bad decision from the courts as to the separation of powers issue, as to whether a congressional committee can bring a former president before it to testify. They realized they would get bad law on that. And so that, in conjunction with the fact that they expired, the committee's expired, is why they withdrew the subpoena.
And obviously, Trump is the only declared candidate for president so far. So, I mean, obviously, what happens to him will be closely watched as well when Jack Smith, when and if, does release something. Talking about the SCOTUS, obviously, Title 42, they made that ruling to keep it in place. Very important function there. But there was another revealing report that came out. I want to get your reaction to Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, his year-end report, Ameer. And, it was focused on the need for stepped-up security for federal judges. He wrote in part here that, a judicial system cannot and should not live in fear. We obviously saw what happened with the Dobbs leaked decision. It was unprecedented, yet we still don't know who that was. Ameer, do you think we'll ever know?
I hope so, Bianca. I was disappointed that he didn't mention that. And he didn't directly mention the assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh as well. I think both of those things needed to be addressed. But what he did do, which, and although he did it sort of in a sideways way, is he clapped back at Justice Kagan, who has been public about she has criticized the court, for at least the majority of the court, the conservative bloc on the court, for doing what she thinks is pursuing an ideological agenda as opposed to following the law. And he says, no, that's not true. We have very well-reasoned decisions. Just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean that we're politicized, and you have every right to issue a dissent. So I thought that was an important part of his remarks that got overlooked. But yeah, I hope we do see ultimately some sort of result from this investigation on the Supreme Court as to the leak, because that was very dangerous, and that among all other things erodes trust in our institution.
It sure does. And, they were targeted for assassination. We saw the danger right outside their homes. And despite, you saw in Virginia, the protesters were allowed, even though it looked like there was case law that they could have been pushed back from the justice's home, Ameer. That was a clear indication there that they were going to sort of let these protesters get within striking range of some of the Supreme Court justices, even though they might have been able to use the power of the law to stop that.
Well, the left does this is, they engage in personal attacks rather than engage on the merits. If they disagree with an opinion, that's their right to disagree with the opinion. But instead of trying to disagree in sort of the public square and with legal arguments of their own, they decide to go after the individual. We saw that also with Ginny Thomas. They've attacked her unfairly simply because she's married to Justice Thomas. And I think we can continue to see it. We see it in all different spheres. But ultimately, I think the court should have addressed that more, because it's great that they did pass this legislation to protect the judges. I think that was, a very good piece of legislation. But at the end of the day, they should have called out the assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh for what it was and attributed fault where the fault lies.
Ameer Benno, always great to have you in. Thank you so much for providing such detailed analysis for us this afternoon.
Thanks so much.